Our rundown for today will be I'll go through a quick PowerPoint presentation, and we've got a couple of guests joining us today. So we've got Peter Newman and Campbell Jones. Peter Newman is the Weedsmart Western Region agronomist and involved with ARI. Peter, if you'd just like to introduce yourself.
Yes, good morning, Johnny. Good morning, everyone. Just before we went live, I told Johnny that generally these things go pear-shaped in the last minute. But we're getting there now. Good to see everyone is listening in. Yes, I'm the Weedsmart Western Region agronomist. I've been living in Geraldton for 25 years in a range of roles, and about 20 of those years focused on harvest weed seed control, and a lot to do with the Harrington Seed Destructor and Ray Harington himself from day one. So very happy to be here. Weedsmart is a communication platform for communicating information about managing herbicide resistance of weeds. That's funded by both chemical companies and GRDC and their companies that sell the mills, including the Bruin, who makes the mills for the iHSD. So yeah, thanks for having me.
No worries, Peter. Thank you, and thanks for joining us. And we've got Campbell Jones, who I think is 100% cropper, about 2 hours east of Perth in Wyalkatchem. Campbell's, I think, coming into his 5th harvest this year, with both hydraulic and now the vertical, the new V12. He ran in 2019. Campbell, if you'd just like to let us know a bit about yourself.
Thanks, John. Morning, everyone. Campbell Jones from Wyalkatchem, just north of Wyalkatchem. We're 100% cropping for about 5,000 hectares here, and we first ran the hydraulic mills in 2016, ran them for 3 years, and then we've changed over to the vertical mills, and extremely happy with the way they're performing. So, thanks, John.
Fantastic. Thanks, guys. So as we go through, at the bottom of the screen, you'll see there's a phone number, 0457 888 102. If you've got any questions, please text them through to that number, and we'll tick them off with whoever they're directed at. More than happy to discuss anything further. If anyone's got any questions, just if you can text them to that number, that'll see us right, and hopefully get a bit of interaction. So feel free to do that. Please include with that your name and location, just sort of out of a bit of for interest's sake as much as anything as well, and just to see where everyone's at and where we're listening from. Obviously, we're going Australia-wide. And now I'm just going to go through a quick PowerPoint presentation. We're Australia-wide, so we've got dealers New South Wales, Queensland, Victoria, South, and obviously in Western Australia. So we're selling to the three main colours and class machines as well. So we're obviously last year we had 100 plus machines in the field, and we're on the Case and New Holland machine, so the double div machines, we can remove the machine still fitted to the back. We have some external chutes off the back to manage the chaff residue and spread that out into your wind stream, and very simple in-cab monitoring run with a farm scan jackal. It's a very simple mechanical direct drive system. 100 machines in the field last year, so it's run very similar to your chopper. It's a direct drive, so there's no gearboxes. With the vertical mills, we run directly off the engine drive down to a jack shaft similar to your chopper, and then down to the iHSD. It runs at 3,000 RPM to maximise mill capacity and kill rate, so we can handle a lot of volume and be able to push it through pretty quickly. Our very simple stone trap and bypass mechanisms here. There's a small video here for these.
One of the key features of the new iHSD mills is our stone trap. As we all know, foreign objects will be put through the combine. Last year we had 2 retractables and numerous knife blades go through the machine. This particular machine, one morning when the operator was doing his pre-harvest inspection, he opened the door and this particular retractable finger was ejected onto the ground. The good thing was no damage whatsoever was done to the mills or any of the iHSD, and was able to keep harvesting.
So this is the options here. We've got the option to windrow your chaff or your straw, or both. So this is on a John Deere last year up around the Carnamah area. Advantages of running a mechanical drive vertical mill. It's a very simple drive system. Pulleys and belts uses OEM parts, direct off the header. Obviously, no gearboxes are required because we're a direct drive mill on the vertical side of things. Very simple belt removal for grain loss checks, so we can check any grain loss that we might be having. So that's something that you can monitor very, very simply. And the machine can be restored to factory settings without any damage or changes to the headers. We don't actually drill any holes or anything like that. We just everything can be removed and taken back. So if you to purchase a new header and put your V12 back onto the next header, very simple to remove everything and go from there. There's been a lot of research done, obviously, over the last 20 years in conjunction with the University of Sydney, and a lot of testing with ARI, who Peter obviously is involved with. So Dr. Mike Walsh, they've been testing over a long period of time, and we're at 99%, up to 99% weed kill rates on things like ryegrass and brome grasses. I think about the 96%, radish at about 99 as well. So a lot of those problem weeds that we have out in the field everywhere, I believe, this is a mechanical mode of action rather than it passing through the header and reseeding for next year. I believe we're getting most of these machines fitted up for about $90,000 to the customer. So I think we're in a pretty good position there for our cost effectiveness compared to some of the other guys out there on the mechanical weed destruction side of things. A mill replacement is about $9,500 for a complete set, and our mill life varies across the board between 200 and 700 hours. That depends on a lot of varying factors around crop, straw separation, header type, and then we also look at things like dirt and straw. So ingesting dirt obviously wears the mills because they're running at such a high speed. They're running, it's like sandblasting them, so that does impair on the wear, but we've seen some numbers, but our average across the board this year was about 390 hours for the 2019 harvest. That included the numbers of a lot of guys who finished harvest. So we might get into next year with a bit of work there as well. So we think that 400-hour mark is probably a pretty fair assumption. Campbell, I'm not sure where you got to with harvest this year.
Yeah, John, we did about 400 hours. So
yep.
With ours, but we ingested a lot of dirt. Our crop was pretty low and thick, and yeah, we took a lot of dirt in. So we got about 400 hours. Out of the last mills, first set of mills we got about 600 hours out of those. 400 hours we got out of the mills last year with the vertical ones. Like I said, we did ingest a lot of sand last year, which certainly didn't help every day. I dropped the stone trap, which is a very simple job. It takes you, half a minute to do that, and it was just dropping out just sand. We put a lot of sand through it, which didn't help. But I was pretty happy with the 400 hours that survived our harvest, which was good.
Yeah, good. No worries. So with that cost with the mills at those sort of numbers, the running cost of wear and tear comes in at approximately $2 a hectare, and then you might run at $1 a hectare, another $1 a hectare possibly on fuel. So we sort of think that our running costs of wearing parts and your actual inputs are probably about that $3 per hectare. We'll further into the presentation, we'll get into the cost of ownership as well, which takes all of those things into consideration, which is something that Peter's put together, which is pretty interesting reading and very interactive. So this is just something that Peter put together. Obviously, it's a spreadsheet that we can share the link to. So this is just the running costs put together with the cost of ownership and the inputs. So obviously everybody's in a different situation, so those numbers vary, but we've run it on a 2,000 hectares of cereals, 1,000 hectares of legumes, and 1,000 hectares of canola. So that's just a bit of a rough average, 8,300 tonnes of grain. With those numbers, our complete cost of ownership with everything taken into consideration is approximately that $12.15 a hectare at those type of numbers. So if we go into there, we obviously this is a link that we can all get on the RE website. If we were to vary those numbers to somewhere else, if we just go in there at let's put that at 2,500 hectares and put these guys legumes to 500, and if we put canola to 1,500, so a nice big program, and then that obviously varies a few bits and pieces. So we go down here to see the cost of ownership, where you'll see there we've come in. Then obviously the bigger the program, $11.81 per hectare, with taking into consideration all of your depreciation costs, and we're also looking at the nutrient value going back into the soil here. Peter, if you want to throw anything in here, mate.
Yeah, no, you're all over it, Johnny. I mean, the reason I created this spreadsheet was we're always trying to estimate the cost of all the different harvest weed seed control tools and using an average farm. And so by doing this way, the person can download their own, they can input their own areas and crop yields and work out the cost. So you'll see that it's not only the mill, it's all the other harvest weed seed control tools as well. The important thing to consider is that it's the nutrients. And so you're on the nutrients there. There's a cost of nutrient removal if you are burning or chaff lining or chaff card or chaff deck and so on, whereas the mills are having to return all of the nutrients to the soil, so we don't put a cost of nutrients on there. And what I've used there in terms of fuel and harvest capacity was based on what Condon said, with 1 litre of extra fuel per tonne of grain, not per hectare, but per tonne of grain. And so I'd be interested in your comments here, Johnny, if I've got that right. And then you can also vary that harvest capacity. It doesn't slow you down, so that's probably a big one. If it doesn't slow you down at all, then that's, you can play around with that figure, then that reduces the cost again. But obviously, the more it might slow you down, the more cost of harvest. So
yeah, we can do that. We can do that there. If we go drop that by 20% and we change our mill life to say 300, just to cover all angles, and then if we then scroll down, it varies your number there again. So the chaff lining, if you and those sort of things, then it changes your chaff line and chaff deck, but you've got obviously that cost of nutrients that you're losing on those ones as well. So, Peter, is there any other numbers you think? Any other numbers you'd like to?
I think you changed the harvest rate per hour there, Johnny, instead of the harvest capacity.
Oh, okay, yes, yeah, sorry.
It slows you down. So the harvest rate is how many hectares per hour that you're harvesting at, and then a bit lower down is the percent reduction in harvest.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Scroll down from there.
It's a bit of a lag.
And also, the other one that's tricky is the harvest cost per hour. Not many farmers really carry that number around in their head, what it costs to run a harvester per hour, plus the chaser bit, including all of the cost of ownership and depreciation and repairs and maintenance and so on. So a bit further down there, you've got the percent reduction in harvest capacity, Johnny, just above the cost of the mill, the cost of the mill replacement parts. That's the number to play with.
Okay. There. Sorry, mate. There's a bit of that one there. So if we play with that reduction in capacity, we're at 10% there. So if you to change that around, you mean?
Change it to 20 and then change it to 0 and just see what it does.
Yep.
And so that'd be interesting for yourself, Campbell, to comment on what are people doing with fuel and what are they seeing with harvest capacity? Are they reducing it or are they maintaining it, or does it vary? That'd be an interesting discussion from my point of view.
Yeah, Campbell, have you got?
Yes, John, we certainly do have a reduction in capacity
You do get it. We certainly noticed it more with our hydraulic system. Used a lot more fuel, but now with the vertical mills, it's certainly not as noticeable. There is still a little bit there. I wouldn't know it as a figure what to put on it. With the old one, we're probably a reduction of the 20%. I would imagine. Because we ran the old header without the HSD and then put it on with the new header. And the vertical mills, it's a bit of an unknown, but it's certainly, we did run it at the end of the season without the HSD, and I didn't notice a lot of difference, to be honest, in the capacity of the header. So I still think there would be a slight reduction in capacity, but not as great as the hydraulic system.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, it's an interesting conversation to have there. So if anyone's got any questions on any of those things, feel free to flick them through. So the models we're available to fit are the New Holland, obviously anything basically from about up to 10 years old now, John Deere and the Case machines. And then last year they ran a couple of class machines on a 770. So this year they'll be commercially available at pretty limited numbers, but they'll run on the 770 machines and 780. That have got the Mercedes drive system on them. So there's a Perkins and a Mercedes. At the moment, we're looking at the Mercedes drive system for those, but we can obviously, you can see there that we're covering a good number of the machines that are out there. So I think we can sort of cover most of the machines there. We think it's one of the most cost-effective mechanical weed control methods during harvest. It's been proven and tested for 25 years plus, with Ray doing all the work back in the day, backed by our dealer network Australia-wide, and we've got strict limited numbers for the 2020 harvest. We've had a pretty solid uptake across the board, especially in WA at the moment. There's been a very, very solid uptake on that. So it's been pretty interesting, and if anybody's got any questions, would love for anybody to message through. And Peter and Campbell, if you've got any questions you'd like to throw out there or comments.
I'd probably just ask that question of you, Johnny. What were people telling you about harvest capacity? I mean, 2019 harvest in WA for most people was low, pretty low yields, and so mostly people weren't, restricted by capacity. They were probably restricted by other things, how fast they're looking to travel, for example. Have you got any comments on what you've seen over a few years about the harvest capacity and how much yield comes into play there?
It's very dependent, obviously, area, crop size and header size. So obviously with the 10 like the bigger 10, class 9 and class 10 machines, I think there's sort of probably less impact on there, but on the smaller machines in some bigger crops, a class 7 machine running in some bigger crops, say in southwestern Victoria, might have taken a little bit more. I would say I think that number of 10% is probably very close on an average between the machines that we had them running on. We had machines last year 7120 fitted, so it's a pretty small horsepower machine. I think the big class 9 and class 10 machines don't so much have that impact. But yeah, look, I think across the board, I reckon 10% would be a pretty reasonable number. I know some customers in Victoria were class 7 machines in some 5-ton, 6-ton wheat and barley crops. I think they probably slowed down a little bit more, but we're happy to do so. Obviously, getting a job done in the same pass, I suppose, was their take on it, and they understood that they were going to take a little bit of a hit on capacity in bigger crops with a smaller capacity machine. So, but yeah, I think across the board that 10% would be very close to a pretty solid number. Obviously, like Campbell said, there was some lighter crops around last year. Yeah, the speed of the machine compared to the capacity of the tonnes per hour was probably something that impacted it as much as anything else last year. So hopefully that turns around for this year.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you, John. We certainly couldn't get a grip on what was the capacity of the machine. Obviously, very light crops, so but we're very happy with the way it handled. I'm also, I guess, for me, If we do get a bit of reduction in capacity, like you said, I'm extremely happy to wear that. The silver pack, I know I'm doing the job. So for me, a little bit of harvest capacity loss is fully acceptable.
No worries. No, thanks, Campbell. We just had a question text through. No, there's no name or anything to it, but just wanted to know if Campbell has changed the way he is using pre-em herbicides now that he has used the iHSD.
John, no, I haven't changed the way I use my pre-ems. For me, I take a very aggressive stance on my program. I'm doing a lot of chemical fallow, and also then I follow it up with a GM canola to control weeds. In my worst paddocks first. What I have noticed is I did a chemical fallow in 15, and then we ran the HSD for 16, and subsequent years those paddocks that we fallowed in 15 and had canola in 16, they're extremely clean. We've managed to keep them very clean with running the HSD over it. It's not a silver bullet. It's just, for me, it's just a part of one of the whole program for me. So no, to answer the question, I'm still using all my preems. I certainly think the preems certainly have to work as hard. You do keep your weed numbers down, so they're probably getting used a little bit better. If that makes sense.
No, good. That's it. So, and some other anecdotal evidence is people haven't raised their rates. So the guys who are sort of coming into harvest number 4 haven't raised rates in those times, I suppose. And I think pretty widely it always sort of seems to climb up over the years anyway. I think that'd be fair to say across the board, Peter.
Yeah, we don't have great numbers on it, Johnny, but from speaking to guys, I mean, the obvious question is, if I spend money on something like an HSD, can I save money on herbicides? And eventually you will, but it does take time. And what farmers find is that it is sort of year 5 or 6 when particularly something like ryegrass, where the numbers crash. And not until that point that you can start saving money on herbicides, really. And it might not necessarily be 3M either. A lot of people said to keep a good rate of 3M in the system, but you might start saving money on things like radish herbicides or even controlling volunteers and so on. So we don't have great numbers on it, but anecdotally people do eventually save money on herbicides, but it does take that period of time, probably 5 or 6 years, for them to get the seed banks right down low where they're ready to start reducing some input costs.
Yeah, and Peter and John, I've noticed the last few years, obviously we're still using preems, but ryegrass numbers in the crop during the season have dropped quite significantly. I had some paddocks early in the piece that I was intending to fallow, but after 3 years of using the HSD, I actually haven't followed them. The numbers of ryegrass has dropped dramatically. So that's it certainly convinced me that you always running the machine with the HSD.
That's a really good point, Campbell. And what we find growers talking about is the reason that they're doing this, the reason they're doing things like harvest weed seed control and all of the other non-herbicide weed management we talk about is to keep the farming crop. Now you might be chemical fallowing because you're low rainfall and you're storing moisture, and that might not change. But if you are someone who is cropping and trying to keep the farming crop, this is where we believe that adopting these diverse range of tools, including things like harvest weed seed control, is what keeps the farming crop, and that's where people make their money. So they don't necessarily make their money each year from having fewer wheat in crop. You're making a little bit of money that way, but it's keeping that whole farming crop, growing the rotation that you want to grow. And like Ray Harington's comments, we want to call the shots. We don't want the weeds calling the shots. We want the farmer calling the shots. That's really what it's all about. That's how we make money.
Yeah, And the other thing is, Campbell, you could throw into that, I think in probably the last 4 or 5 years, you've probably had pretty dry start, so very little pre-emergent like weeds actually germinating prior to harvest to getting that pre-emergent kill. I think it'd be pretty fair to say I think you've had a pretty reasonably dry start to most years in the last 4 or 5.
Yes, absolutely, John. Well, 2016 was our last normal start, as you'd say, with an early break. 17, 18, 19 were all pretty much dry seeding, and really this year was dry seeding as well. So, it's 4 years in a row of complete dry seeding. So, whole program.
Yeah, no worries. Hey, just another question just come through. Campbell, do you ever remove your iHSD for some crops? For example, direct heading canola.
We did toy with the idea of doing that last year, but we ran it with the canola. We didn't have any problems at all, so it did handle, and it was quite green. Our canola was quite green, and we have noticed in the past with the horizontal, we had a bit of blockages with green material, but the vertical mill handled the green material really well. I was exceptionally surprised, and so we didn't take it off.
Peter, have you got any questions? And Peter and Campbell, if you've got any other questions you'd like to throw out, but yeah, other than that, we'll see where we get to.
Yeah, John, I did have a question from a mate this morning. He said, in regards to HSD, he asked me, do you reckon in 10 years you'll never use you'll stop using HSD? And it was a bit of a strange question. I just couldn't imagine why you wouldn't want to be using it all the time. I've seen results. I've seen when we've had a block on one side of the machine, and it's just like a line in the sand where you have weeds, and I can follow that block until where I've cleared it, and I can see where it started. And then we had a machine, our machine running next to a demo, and you could go out in the paddock and you could see where the machine, the following year, the demo machine without HSD, and it was, like I said, a line in the sand. It was unbelievable, and it just shows you how good this system is. So.
Yeah. No, thank you. Guys, I think we're just about, we've had a couple of questions come through, and thanks very much for those. Appreciate that. And I'd just like to thank everybody for their time, and would love any feedback if anybody could email back through. I think there'd be some sort of link there, or the phone number. Any feedback on anything anybody would like to know, or make contact privately. There's no dramas there at all.